absence. I know Stephen Vickers gives his apologies today. Any others that we need to note? I think everyone's here either in person or online. So welcome everybody. Thanks for coming along today, which takes us to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Any declarations to note? I don't believe so. It's a single agenda item. Justine, do you want to come in there?
Thank you, Leader. There's no advice. There is just one report. If any interests arise during debates, then please notify us at that stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Justine. So do raise it if there are any. Next item then is confirmation of the minutes from the 6th of June. Is everyone happy with those as a true and accurate record? Yeah. Any matters arising from those? No. In which case, update on actions. Is there anything we need to note? No outstanding actions. So we can move straight to item number 6, which is the catchily titled Reciprocal Arrangements for the Enforcement of the Energy and Performance of Buildings Regulations 2012. And if I hand over to Mandy to open on this one.
Thank you, Leader. Members, this report relates specifically to the enforcement of energy performance legislation that seeks to improve the energy efficiency of buildings, reducing their carbon emissions and lessening the impact of climate change. The requirements include the need for structured assessments and reporting on aspects of buildings that have a bearing on energy use. Councils are identified in the legislation as enforcement authorities and have a responsibility to enforce certain duties in their area. There's also a requirement for councils to transfer enforcement duties to another authority to assess compliance and undertake enforcement of buildings they own or control that are within scope. I commend this report to Cabinet, recommending the approval of reciprocal arrangements for the enforcement of energy performance requirements in council-owned and controlled buildings in the areas of Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent. Blaenau Gwent Council's Cabinet approved the reciprocal arrangements in May 23, and I will now hand over to Dan Morelli, Head of Public Protection and Environmental Services, to give more detail of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Owen, and good afternoon, members. Just to add to what Councillor Owen has already said, the legislation relating to energy performance of buildings was first introduced in 2008, and this requires structured assessments and reporting of aspects of buildings which have a bearing on energy performance, such as construction style, fabric used, and installation measures, amongst other things. As Councillor Owen has said, the law gives responsibility for enforcement to local authority trading standard services, and the Council can't enforce the legislation in respect of buildings that it owns or controls, so it's required to transfer responsibility for enforcement to another enforcement authority. Only certain buildings are within scope of the legislation, so there are particular criteria to which this relates, and as has been outlined by Councillor Owen, this report seeks the Cabinet approval for the reciprocal arrangements between Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent councils for enforcement purposes. A copy of the proposed agreement is at Appendix B within the report, and this agreement has been consulted on with public protection colleagues and also legal colleagues as well. There are no significant resource implications associated with implementing the agreement, and the agreement helps to ensure the authority is compliant with legal obligations. If Cabinet approve the report, it will be published on the Council's website. And that concludes the report.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Mandy. Any questions, members, on this? I think it's, obviously important that we take a lead on the issue of energy efficiency and performance in our buildings. I know it's more widely, it's a huge issue for buildings across areas, especially in areas like the South Wales Valleys with lots of older buildings. Interestingly, I've been at discussions about sort of green investment vehicles and ways of getting more money in for retrofit and updating buildings before, and that's I guess it's a separate issue, but it's an interlinked one with this, but it's welcome that we're putting in place these arrangements to try and get local authority owned and controlled buildings up to scratch as well. Sue.
Yeah, just to say that, that this legislation is important, but I think it's something that we would be seeking to do anyway, to work together with other authorities to improve our energy efficiency is a key to unlocking resources to divert into other areas of council service that are hard pressed, as well as contributing to our climate change response. So, you know, it's a win-win all around really, and I think the arrangements with Blaenau Gwent will be fine if other reciprocal arrangements are anything to go by.
Right, yeah, there's 3 wins there, one, isn't it? The partnership aspect of it, pooling resources, which I think is the best thing to do for both good governance and value for money. And there's a value for money thing about saving money on energy, and also the climate point, which you mentioned, which of course is a very hot topic, literally, no pun intended, at the moment with the impacts of climate change that we're seeing. Any other questions or points you want to make? Anyone else? If not, I'll move us to the recommendation, which is paragraph 8.1, which is that Cabinet approves the reciprocal arrangements for the enforcement of energy performance of buildings, England and Wales Regulations 2012, as amended in local authority-owned and controlled buildings in the areas of Torvine and Blaenau Gwent councils. Are we all happy with that? That's passed unanimously, I believe. So thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Mandy.